You're watching the fantastic Mr. B. Okay, in today's video we're going to learn how to multiply decimals by powers of 10. Now before we jump into learning about multiplying decimals by powers of 10, let's review powers of 10. So 10 to the power of 0 is really 1. This 0 here is telling us we have no zeros behind the 1. And I know you're probably wondering about that 0, but that doesn't count towards our powers. So 10 to the power of 0 means it's 1. And it'll make more sense here in a minute. So now we have 10 to the power of 1. That means we just have one 10. We don't even have anything to multiply that by. We just have a 10. Now we have 10 to the power of 2. That means we are doing 10 times 10. And as you can see, 1 times 1 equals 1. And then we have two zeros to annex behind that 1. So 10 times 10 equals 100. So 10 to the power of 2, or 10 squared, is 100. And so 10 to the power of 3 is equal to 10 times 10 times 10. Now, if we look over at our exponential form right here, I always like to tell my students, as a great way to kind of just do this really quick, is you can cross that 0 out and write down a 1. And this exponent right here is telling us how many zeros to put after the 1. 1, 2, 3. And 10 times 10 times 10 equals 1,000. So a lot of students will make a mistake and they will want to put an extra 0 in. And that's why I have them cross that 0 out. Now let's do just a regular review of what it means to multiply by powers of 10 with 1, 10, 100, and 1,000. So we have 4 times 1 equals 4. Now let's do 4 times 10. What really is happening here, since we have a 0 here, we also have a decimal right here. And so if we just did our basic math of 1 times 4 is 4, like above, and I had this decimal here, the 0 here is telling me to move it over one spot to the right because my number is getting larger. So 40. Now same thing, 4 times 1 is 4. Typically I'd have my decimal here, but I have two zeros. And I know my number is getting larger, so I'm going to move my decimal to the right 2 times and put 2 zeros after the 4 to equal 400. Same thing for 4 times 1,000. 4 times 1 equals 4. I typically would have a decimal there for 4 times 1. But I can see I have 1, 2, 3 zeros, so I need to move my decimal 3 times to the right, which equals 4,000. So let's get into some reviews now. So now let's actually get into multiplying decimals by powers of 10. So we have 2 and 86 hundredths times 1. Well, that equals 2 and 86 hundredths. Now I have 2 and 86 hundredths times 10. I have 1 0 here, so that's going to tell my decimal it's going to move over one spot to the right, making my value larger. So my answer is 28 and 6 tenths. Now I have 2 and 86 hundredths times 100. I have 2 zeros in 100, so it's telling my decimal to move to the right, making my number larger. So I have 286. And then I have 2 and 86 hundredths times 1,000. I have 3 zeros here. So it's telling my decimal to move to the right. In common sense, tells us it's getting larger when we move the decimal to the right. So I move it 3 times to the right. And so I have a blank spot here that will have to fill with a 0 here. So my answer is 2,860. Now let's do some work with multiplying decimals by powers of 10, but using our exponential form right here. So 62 thousandths times 10 to the power of 0. This 0 is telling me that I'm really just multiplying this number. I'm multiplying 62 thousandths by 1, which is 0 and 62 hundredths. This exponent right here is helping me now tell me how many times I need to move my decimal. So I only have 110, so I'm going to move my decimal one spot to the right. So my answer is 0 and 62 hundredths. Now I'm going to look at my exponent, the 2. I'm going to change color here, the 2, and it's going to tell my decimal to move 2 times to the right because I need to make my number larger. So now my answer is 6 and 2 tenths. And last but not least, and I made a small mistake there. Let's go ahead and fill that in with our 2. And last but not least, I have 62 thousandths times 10 to the power of 3. So I look at the 3, and it's telling me that I need to move my decimal 3 times to the right. So my answer is 62. There you go. That's how we multiply decimals by powers of 10. Until next time, this is the fantastic Mr. B. Please click subscribe, like, and share.